Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to a series of videos in which I'm reading you a book. We are reading the Gospel according to St. Matthew. We took a few days off, but now we're back to push on to the end of the Gospel. We're right near the end. Recently, in the chapters that we've been reading, Jesus has been talking to his disciples. They've been largely free of the massive crowds that have been following him, and they've also been largely free of the acrimonious arguments that have been characterizing his exchanges with the powers that be in Jerusalem. They are in Jerusalem. Instead, he's been talking to them about the specifics of this thing that he's been preaching about all along, the kingdom of heaven and its imminence. The fact that it is not a matter of dusty old scripture anymore. It's something that's about to happen. It's going to happen relatively soon. And he's telling them about it. For the last few chapters, he's been stressing one point more than anything else, which is that you've got to be ready because it's going to spring upon you. And if you're not ready, you'll lose out. I don't want to start making trouble in this chapter before I've even started reading, but that does not make sense. That basic thing does not make sense unless you are trying to build a cult. One of the fundamental methods of cult building is to tell the people, your victims, your marks, that they've got to act urgently, because when you act urgently, you aren't acting rationally most of the time. I can't think of any other reason why on earth would it be so that the kingdom of heaven will spring at you like a tiger from the grass. Why would that be so? But we're going to continue. This is the last chapter that we'll get this before the action picks up, which will bring us to the end of the gospel. So this is chapter 25. I'm reading this in the King James Version, hence the antiquated language. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us your oil, for our lamps are gone out. And the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. They come to the shut doors, after they've bought oil for their lamps. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Okay. Again, I want to point out that isn't quite a parable. I don't know it's an illustration of meant to illustrate, an allegory meant to illustrate the nature of the coming of the kingdom of God. But it falls on a couple of points. First of all, the bridegroom does know those bridesmaids. In the real world, if you don't immediately start interpreting this and allegorizing it, in the real world, a bridegroom who said to bridesmaids who were pounding on his door, let us in for the ceremony, and said, because you had to go and because you're a little late, I don't know you at all, you can't come to my wedding, is an a-hole. That bridegroom is a raging a-hole. No one would act that way. Not in Jesus' time, not 1,000 years before his time, not 2,000 years after his time. No one would act that way. So you immediately have to start interpreting this, because it's not like some of Jesus' other parables. It doesn't work in the real world. It won't work in the real world. To say nothing of the fact that the bridesmaids who refuse to share their oil, of course, they're not being asked, despite what the wording would have you say here, they're not being asked to give all of their oil to the lazy virgins. Instead, they're being asked to share, and there is enough for all of them. They don't want to do that. And that also is a-hole behavior, and doesn't mix very well with the injunctions that Jesus has previously made in this gospel to give to everyone who asks from you. Even at your own detriment. But we have another illustration of the kingdom of heaven to go through here. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, and every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Talent is a form of money. It's a huge amount of money. So he's giving away large amounts of money to his servants to look after while he's gone. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. In other words, he doubled his money. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoned with them. And so that he that received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou delivered unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And as I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth, lo, there hast that is thine. Thou hast that is thine. In other words, you gave me 1 talent, I'm giving you back 1 talent. Keep in mind an earlier story. We're going to get to that. His Lord answered him and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I soweth not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received my own with usury, in other words, with interest. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So much, for he that is first shall be last, and he that is last shall be first. This is saying greed is good. Greed is not only good, it's commanded. It's holy, because if you don't do it, you'll be cast into outer darkness. Remember the earlier story about an owner of a vineyard who hired a group of men first thing in the morning to work all day, and he set the tone for them. He set the terms of service, their payment. Then he hired another group of men at midday, and then another in late afternoon who only worked an hour before he called off work for the day. He paid all of them the same. And when the first group of workers complained, he said, Didn't we set the terms? I offered you this much. I'm giving you this much. Here, the ruler gets back exactly as much as he gave the miserable, slothful servant. And that's not enough, because he wanted more. But look at what more we're being told. Again, I want to say this parable, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't work. There is no one who can read, unless you are reading this through your God goggles, there is no one who can read this story and not think that the man who traveled into a far country is here wrong. And not only do you have to interpret that, but you're outright told that. The slothful servant says, I know you're a hard man, a mean man, and also that you reap where you do not sow, that you harvest where you do not straw. In other words, that you yourself are greedy. And I was worried. Now, why was he worried? For the same reason that the other 2 servants could have been worried, and this whole story could have gone south in a completely different way. They're not going out and just being given double their master's money. They're putting it on the exchange, on the finance exchanges. They could easily have lost it all. That's why the slothful servant was fearful. He was fearful because he was worried that he would lose the 1 talent and have nothing to give. That's not good enough. He was a faithful shepherd of the thing he was given. That's not good enough. He didn't make his master money. You have to hear this and immediately start interpreting it. In other words, where the master is God and the servants are the faithful here on earth. And obviously it's not talents, although there are plenty of mega preachers who would say that it is. It's not money that you're supposed to go out and increase. It's the faithful. You're supposed to go out and win souls. But you have to do that. Unlike a lot of Jesus' other parables that stand as stories on their own, the parable of the prodigal son, for instance. Here, it doesn't stand on its own. It indicts the figures involved, who are supposed to be praised. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue to the end of this chapter. This is the last that we're going to hear of all this sort of stuff. Everything changes after this chapter. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all the nations. And he shall separate them one from the other, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered, and you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Good thing you didn't need lamp oil. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? And when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these my brethren, ye have done it to me. Then shall he say unto those on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. We have seen in this gospel and the one before it that the devil and his angels do not live in everlasting fire. They're all over the place. They've got the free run of the world. For I was hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer to them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. And that is the end of the chapter, and that is also the end of Jesus' preaching on the kingdom of heaven. And there's a lot to digest here, and none of it is good. I would argue that none of it is good. I would argue that the only way that you can make sense out of any of this stuff is through religious indoctrination. Unlike a lot of the rest of this that we're just reading as literature, that stands as literature, I don't believe this does. I think this is Jesus hitting a very, very specific note about how you had better not be complacent, because the kingdom of heaven is not only coming, but it will spring on you without warning, and it is, let's face it, fundamentally unjust. It will not listen to you. It will not care. You will either be, as that in that previous story, the totally irrational man wants strangers that he plucked off the street to attend his wedding to have wedding dresses on, when of course they're not going to have that, and it's weird and irrational to expect that. Same thing here. It's to inculcate, I believe, it's to inculcate an atmosphere of deep urgency. Let's not be complacent at all under any circumstances, even natural circumstances. I think you have to look at all of that in order to do this. The injunction about, I was sick, I was hungry, and you came and visited me. The heart of those things is wonderful. The heart of the law is mercy, meaning go and do those things. But here it's given an unhealthy cast. Here it may not be the way the speaker in the story intends it, but here it's clearly the carrot and the stick. Here it's clearly, well, did you do these things? Because if you didn't, you're going to get punished. And if you did, then you're going to go into everlasting life. There's no sense anymore of doing them for their own sake. And that brings up the last point that I want to make here is also, it's not a Christian invention, but it is an iniquitous thing. It is a deeply, deeply evil concept. And that is the concept of eternal punishment, which is embodied in this chapter. We've seen it before. We've seen hints of it before. It's all over ancient Near Eastern texts, that you can be punished eternally. Jesus is all but saying here that if you're not ready when the kingdom of God arrives, if you did not give succor to the least of his brethren, then you will be punished for it in fire forever. No sense of proportion, no sense of expiation, no sense of just time served, nothing like that, just an eternal punishment. You will be suffering forever. I would hope that I don't need to stress that that is fundamentally, psychotically unjust. But that seems to be the theme here. And I think the reason why it's so prominent here and the reason why it differs so much from a lot of what else that Jesus says is because of the note that is trying to be struck here, that this is urgent. This is so urgent that you must not ever let your guard down. You must not ever start thinking about this. But maybe you have a different interpretation. I'm sure that you have heard things like this in your own Christian faith. And I'm sure that you've especially heard it if you grew up in a fundamentalist faith. They love stuff like this. They love, for some weird reason, they seem to love the negative, vengeful side of what you can interpret from these stories. I'm not really sure about why that is, but when I've been at Southern Fundamentalist Baptist churches especially, I've seen that a lot. But that is the last of these chapters. That is the last of the chapters where Jesus is going to be basically exhorting his disciples. Now we move back to human drama. So I'll wrap this up for now. We're going to go right to the end of this gospel. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll come back to it next time. Thank you, BookTube.